Uncovered. ShadowTrader Studios. ShadowTrader Uncovered. ShadowTrader Studios.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back, ShadowTrader Uncovered. Brad Agunis, Peter Rezicek.
Yes.
And special guest,
Ben Lee from Think Trade Think. Ben, are you with us?
Yes, I am. How are you doing, Peter?
I'm doing great. Good to hear you again, Ben. Yeah, turn me up just a little bit.
How's that? Good?
All right.
Hey,
so
Ben.
Ben, you know, Brad is here doing the show with me.
Going on, Brad?
Not much, buddy. Looking forward to hearing and speaking with you.
All right.
I'm looking forward to looking at your brain.
Yeah, exactly.
Scary.
Exactly. So, Ben, just a little bit of a background. You and I had the pleasure of meeting probably, about a year and a half ago in Chicago at a James Dalton Market Profile seminar, correct? And you gave a short presentation at that seminar on something called 60 to Strength, which maybe we can touch upon it, maybe not. It's not in my notes, but that really kind of intrigued me. It was kind of like an exercise that you had come up with for traders to do before their trading day. And then, make a long story short, you and I actually ended up getting together on some sessions and discussing some trading psychology together in terms of my trading and things like that, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Exactly. So if we could, before we get into the slides, can you just give a short background on yourself, introduce yourself, what you've been doing as far as trading and trading psychology and how you got into all that as well?
Sure. So I've been trading full-time for about 8 years. And right at the time I started trading, I started really getting involved into personal development with Tony Robbins, neuro-linguistic programming. And at that point, I realized that I was jumping from system to system. And, every system has its pros and cons. And by the time I got to about like the third or fourth system, I sat there and I said, you know what, there's something that's not right here. And I said, what's the constant between all those systems and my trading? Because I hadn't gotten the trading results that I was looking for. And I finally sat and I looked in the mirror and I said, oh my God, it's me. And that's when I really started utilizing all those techniques and strategies and, trying to pick apart the stuff that was in my brain to really allow myself to start taking advantage of, my trading system.
Right.
So that's really how I kind of got into it.
Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when we met, you had actually just come off of a streak that was pretty impressive, and I want you to share that one. They're like, once you had figured out kind of what the key was, to your brain and strategies and whatever, you then went on a pretty impressive streak, did you not?
Yes, I actually went eight months without a losing day.
Wow. In ES futures trading, correct?
Yeah, ES futures trading. Minus, there were some days that I broke even where, I lost on commission, but I was pretty much, break even or, positive for 8 months.
Right, net like points or ticks made, you had positivity. So that's really cool. That's really cool. That's pretty strong.
Hey, Ben, can I ask you a question? Like, did you come up with your own system?
What do you mean? Trading
as far as trading
or
ESs?
Actually, it was developed by a very good friend of mine, and him and I kind of he started it, and him and I would talk about it, and we kind of developed and had it evolve throughout the years.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but we use a lot of the same things that you guys do: market profile, volume profile. We use like volume composite charts, and the footprint.
Of course.
So a lot of the
and
same
as we all know, Ben, and that's why I wanted to have you on here so much, is that everything that you talk about in terms of what you were able to do strategy-wise that got you to a point where you had not a losing day for 8 months, right? It doesn't really matter. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, what the strategy is. It's all about what is going on with the trader mentally that can get them, to that point of success. I think that you can almost plug and play and interchange. Well, Ben has this. Well, Peter has his top 10 futures setups. Brad has these setups. It's really. I think that the credit really has to. The credit is not really to the system. I think the credit is more towards the work you did psychologically to get yourself there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely true. If you think about it, if you were to just take any system, right? Let's say that system has a 85% effective, rate, right? So 85% of the time you're going to win, right? And let's say it has a positive expectancy of, let's say, 2, right? So that's the best that system can do. right? Because those are the statistics. Like if you take out all human judgment, everything, if you were to put it in a black box and, just kind of take out the, the black swan, so to speak, that would be the best your system could be. So what we're trying to do, if you're not a, algorithm trader, or if you're not, executing your system in a black box, we're trying to get ourselves to the point where we're executing our system at 100%. And that's the most difficult part, because most traders really don't understand the importance of their psychology and how it plays into their decision making on a day by day, minute by minute, tick by tick basis.
Okay. Very excellent. So, Linda, if we could please, let's have slide number 1 up. What I did, Ben, in kind of setting up this interview is I basically, as you know, took copious notes from the sessions that you and I did together, and obviously we only have 2 half-hour sessions here, and maybe we'll do some more later on, but our time is relatively limited. So I just pulled what 2 or 3 like really good nuggets out of the things that we discussed, and I was hoping you could expound on them. So the first thing that I pulled out to start with, it says, taking emotion out of trading is not fully possible. It's all about managing your emotions. And when we were discussing this, I was kind of taken aback by it, because I kind of always thought, like, how can I get it to a point where there is no emotion? How can I just kill all this? How can I kill every feeling of fear and greed, period, and just always be neutral? But as but from our discussions, you actually took a different tack and said that it's really not possible to take all emotions out.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason why that is, if you think about it, when's the last time you bought a car?
A year ago or so.
A year ago. Okay. So let me ask you a question. Did you make a logical decision, or did you make an emotional decision?
Emotional. It's always, I love cars, so it's always emotional.
Well, what we might do, right, it might be an emotional decision in the beginning, and then we'll try to say, oh, but I'm human, I'm logical. We have a bigger frontal cortex than every other animal on the planet. So they'll try to justify it with logic, right? And, when you're dealing with decisions, especially, trading decisions, you had mentioned fear and greed before, right? Now, for us to completely remove all fear from, our system would be actually detrimental, because that fear is there to protect us, right? If we don't have that fear, then how can we really effectively judge risk, right? Then we would just go in and just focus on, whatever the potential is, instead of looking at, the potential downside as well. Okay, and if we were to, break it down even further, if we remove our emotions, right, then we're no better than a computer, right? And we're to the point where computers are extremely powerful, right? You have, I think, the Watson computer, which can basically discern language patterns and deliver information at a very quick rate, right? But the challenge with that is that machine still can't process context like we can. Okay, those gut feelings that we have sometimes, right? If you want to believe in quote unquote a universal power, or your own subconscious or unconscious, when you have that gut feeling, something's telling you, like your own body is telling you something. Like where you look at a chart pattern and you say, you know what, I think this is a good trade, but something's holding you back. It could be that endless database of price action that you've developed over the years. Saying, I've seen something like this before, and although it looks like a good setup, something's holding you back from it. So that disappears if you try to remove your emotions completely out of your trading. It's really about understanding your emotions, managing them, and bringing the best version of yourself forward every single day. When you're in front of your trading screen.
I like that. That is true, because if you think about it, then I think the most important part of what I got out of that from what you were just saying is that how could if fear and greed don't exist, then there's no concept of risk, right? And how could there also be emotions just taken out of trading but not out of life in general? Like it doesn't seem to really make sense. Although that's kind of what we want when we think of trading psychology. The first thing is can I just get rid of all this?
Right.
But it's not an across-the-board thing.
It's like you're trying to take out your own heart. You can try to take out your heart, but it's not really going to work. You're not going to function the way you should.
That's interesting. Very interesting. In managing emotions and in making the trading decisions that we do, I want to put up slide number 2 here, and I think this is really, really huge. If we could for a second, you said that people are 1,000 times more willing to act defensively to protect themselves rather than moving towards something that would create more.
Mm-hmm.
And that really struck a chord with me very much, because I think all of us as traders have fallen into this sort of pitfall where we, for instance, have a position that's underwater and we want to repair that position. So the defensive move is to figure out how does, for instance, that get us to break even, et cetera. Right? We saw this play out right here on this stage perfectly during the course of this week, Brad, and I'm the one that was at fault, because the Apple Iron Butterfly went against me $6,000, and the price line long off the lows, okay, went in my favor 17. But price line is now $40 higher than when I got out.
Yeah.
So so wasn't I guilty of making the same mistake? Because in acting defensively, all I wanted to do was repair that P&L, get that $6,000 loss away from me. I said, okay, now I got this price line could fix it, Amazon fix it, this other stuff could fix it. But yet, correct me if I'm wrong, I should have disconnected all of this and really been thinking about, okay, price line is here, it could do 60 points from here. What could I gain from that? Amazon is here, it can do X. Apple is here, it could do X. And I thought that would be a great example to share with you, Ben, and see if you could expound on that as well a bit, because that was something that actually happened, in my world, right here this week that we were discussing live on this show.
That's a great question, and it's interesting because I actually just took part in a study last week. I flew to LA. We kind of talked about this before. Mm-hmm. You went to LA right before I did, and I was taking part in a study of traders. And what they did, they hooked me up to an EEG, and they mapped my brain while we all traded, which was, I just think that's amazing. I love being on the cutting edge. I love really seeing the physiology and how the neurosciences can really help us to kind of reach our full potential. And after we did that, they actually sat us down and they made us take a questionnaire that was all based on decisions and risk and how you quantify risk. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so what the study did was it said, based on 80% chance of you losing $40 and a 20% chance of you losing nothing, which one would you take? And it was a series of scenarios. And it was interesting because they actually used real money and they played it out for us. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I believe it was in the book Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. He spoke about how risk really changes when you feel like you can really lose something. So if you take a losing trade, right, if it starts going against you immediately, how many times do you actually stop moving your stop loss down further and further, and then you start praying that you'll get back to break even and you'll take off the trade then. Right? Mm-hmm. That's actually the way that the brain is wired. Mm-hmm. So, I forget who it was, but they said that based on the makeup and the chemistry and the way the brain has developed, you're more willing to take more risk when you're already down. Right? Mm-hmm. So if I gave you the opportunity to, let's say, make $50, a 75% chance to make $50, or and then a 25% chance to lose $10. Chances are you probably just take the $50 and run.
Right. Okay, Ben, I'm gonna just take a quick break right there. We're gonna take a commercial break, and we're gonna be back in 90 seconds, and we'll pick this up right where you are right there. Okay, this is Tasty Trade Network. Brad and Peter, ShadowTrader Uncovered. We'll see you guys in 90 seconds. Cool.
On these, my noble positions, let me now be filled, so long as thee, sweet market, remains stilled. But woe, I shall froth spit like a mangy hound, should not these prices remain most rangy bound. Here in this gentle channel let me play, neither to upside nor to downside stray. For cherry beans I yearn on these highways and byways. In this time, in this place, I entreat that we only move sideways. Like sweetest grapes, grown plump and on vine bunched, let soft winds ripple o'er this market unched. So still, remain here in this thy present condition, viewing any movement as most rank sedition. Staunch thyself and soothe the errant market. This is thy place, take thy keister and here park it. Let thy vision of the future be not so narrow as to be determined by the up or down of an arrow. For movement none, I have now in solemn prayed. If markets will, let my will be done at tasty trade.
ShadowTrader Uncovered. ShadowTrader Studios.
All right, folks, welcome back.
Welcome back indeed. ShadowTrader Uncovered with your hosts, Brad and Peter. We have Ben Lee from Think Trade Think on the line.
Yep.
Ben, you still with us?
I'm still here.
Fantastic. So, if you can, just kind of finish your thought on what you, where you were with the, before we took the break, and then I also want to touch upon one other thing that is along these same lines of acting defensively.
Yeah, and also, what were the results of that that questionnaire and test?
Right.
I'm real curious.
I don't have those results yet because we just finished it just past Saturday. So they're digging through the data. They're going to see what what all the research says, and they're going to publish it. So once I find out, I will definitely let you guys know.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So
That's
back
cool.
to what we were saying about risk, and people are much more willing to protect something than to go out and create more.
Right.
So we were talking about the study, and the way the brain works too is it really doesn't like ambiguity, and this is what Jim Dalton says a lot of. It's very difficult for the mind to process something that there isn't a concrete yes or no answer, right? And that's why trading is difficult for a lot of people. People just want a black and white answer, but there really is no black and white answer because every trade is different, because every situation is different, the context is different. So you really have to think more in probability, right? And as your mind's thinking of that risk, it can't discern the difference between emotional and physical pain. So when you lose a trade, it feels like something happened to you, whether or not it really has. Like some of those days where you have that are really, really bad trading days. You feel like you're beat up, right? I mean, you just feel really emotional. You just feel drained.
There's a physicality to it almost. I agree completely.
Yeah. And, the mind can't discern the difference between emotional and physical pain. And what it'll do is when you have those particular days where, everything just went wrong for you, your mind and your unconscious is going to figure out ways to avoid that pain. Right? So when you realize that loss, right, that's a definite 100% loss because, it's already booked in your trading account. But what the mind will try to do is say, all right, well, I already am going to lose this much. Well, let's see if it's going to come back towards my entry point so I won't have to lose as much or lose anything at all. So, that's why it's, really important to understand, how your brain works and how it really affects your profit and loss every single day.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. When we were discussing this point specifically about people being so much more willing to protect themselves rather than move towards a condition of more or something that they want, you had told me that you felt that the brain and the mind and our bodies are wired this way, possibly just because of survival, because we know so well that pain is acute, and we all know that too much pain equals death. Do you think that there's, is there something to that it's something that's innate in us to kind of go for the security rather than go for the more, because we know what pain feels like, and we know that, as pain ramps up, eventually it can end in death?
Yeah, I mean, a good example or analogy is, people trying to lose weight, right? They'll get to a certain point, like they'll lose maybe 10 or 20 pounds or however much it is, but the probability of them reaching their target weight is smaller, because in the very beginning, they have enough negative emotion and negative leverage over themselves to say, hey, listen, this is where I'm not supposed to be at, right? So that negative leverage or that negative emotion propels them forward. But as they get further away from, that starting point, and that pain, that negative pain is less, unless you have the ability to tap into, positive, the positive into it, or the positive leverage, then, you won't be able to reach your goal. So, what I do with, all of my clients is I really help them, discern what their, negative leverage is. Like, what are the things that could happen to them, right? And, we don't want to happen to them. And if we can really get them to associate with it fully, then they'll take the action that's necessary to avoid that from happening. And then beyond that, what do they want in their lives, right? Because once you get past that certain pain, you're going to have some leverage or something pulling you towards, whatever goal that is you want to achieve.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's all so applicable. I mean, we feel all this stuff every single day, but it's very hard, I think, for us for the trader to quantify a lot of this themselves, because of the amount of how deep we're into it, right? Like we always say, you can't see the forest for the trees because we're in it, so to speak, and that's why sometimes you need somebody else telling you. When you were trading yourself and figuring all this out, how were you able to do that? How were you able to kind of take yourself out of it and, be so objective that you were able to see what your own problems were, et cetera?
Well, it took me a long time, to be completely honest, because, like you said, I was in my own weeds. If I had somebody helping me, that was completely objective and, wasn't emotionally involved in my situation like I was, I would have gone through it much, much quicker. But, I'm glad I did it this way, because at least I can, empathize and sympathize with, every trader out there, because I went through it myself. And I was able to figure it out. And really the point was, where I made my biggest leaps was when I sat down and I said, okay, this isn't working. What needs to change? So that would happen every so often. And instead of doing that, if you have somebody there to kind of guide you along the path, it makes it so much easier.
Most definitely. Ben, I'm going to kind of wrap it up here for the day. There's only a few minutes left, and want to kind of give people a taste of what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. You wrote a book called A Bet and a Victor, which is out, that people can get to on your website. You're at thinktradethink.com. Again, full disclaimer, not affiliated with Thinkorswim or TD Ameritrade, just coincidence that it's a similar name. We're going to be talking about your book tomorrow. It's kind of in dare I say, kind of like in a novel format almost, right? Like you constructed this really cool story where a trader goes through all these different pitfalls, and you have all these really creative solutions that he does to kind of dig himself out of these holes, which is kind of cool. So we're going to definitely talk about that at length tomorrow. I just pulled out one tiny excerpt out of it that I wanted to share with everybody tomorrow that definitely will not give away much of anything in the book, just one little piece. And then we're also going to be talking a lot tomorrow about questions, which is something that we discuss on this show a lot, Ben, in terms of Brad and I will very often say, why do people always want to ask why? And this was actually something, Brad, that I discussed at length with Ben about the power or lack of power of certain questions, and how certain questions empower us, actually make us stronger, make us weaker, et cetera, and different things like that. So I'm really looking forward to that discussion. So anyway, our guest today has been Ben Lee from thinktradethink.com, and he'll be with us again tomorrow. We'll pick up where we left off. Ben, I thank you so much for calling in today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Peter, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow's session as well.
All right, fantastic.
All right, thanks,
we'll
Ben.
see you tomorrow at 2:30.
ShadowTrader Uncovered. ShadowTrader Studios.